Do not forget, you can support the channel with a like, and you can also subscribe to be aware of the latest published videos. Thank you. We hope that here you can find the latest news, ideas, and discoveries from the scientific world.
More on Ada Blackjack, the Inupiak woman from Nome, Alaska, and the desperate circumstances that led her to join an expedition to Wrangel Island in the Arctic, which was intended to establish a national claim over the island. She was the only woman and the only Indigenous person in the group, and ultimately its only survivor, along with the cat Vic, shown here on the deck of the much-delayed rescue ship. Ada Blackjack Johnson, born Ada Deletuk, was born in 1898 in Spruce Creek, a small settlement 8 miles outside the village of Solomon and 40 miles east of Nome, Alaska. Her mother moved her to Nome at the age of 8, where she was raised in a Methodist missionary school and taught to read, write, cook, and sew. At 16, Ada married Jack Blackjack. She gave birth to 3 children, but tragically, only her son, Bennett, survived past infancy. Life with Jack Blackjack was miserable. He abused and eventually deserted Ada and her son only 5 years after they were married. Ada was alone and penniless, and Bennett suffered from chronic tuberculosis. With nowhere else to go, Ada walked over 40 miles from Spruce Creek to Nome, carrying her ailing son most of the way. Ada was forced to place him in a Nome orphanage while she sought employment as a seamstress. She worked tirelessly to make enough money to get him back. When famed explorer Vilhjalmur Stephenson came to Nome in 1921 looking for English-speaking Alaska Native families to join an expedition to Wrangel Island, Ada jumped at the opportunity. He offered a salary of $50 per month, an amount unheard of to her at the time, and she was desperate to reunite with her son. However, many people in Nome had serious doubts about the mission. Wrangel Island is a large, remote island in the Chukchi Sea north of Siberia. At the time, various claims for the island had been made by Canada, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, but none stood firm. Stephenson believed that only continuous settlement on Wrangel Island would safeguard a claim. He was gripped by ambition to further his legacy as a celebrated explorer and investigate new economic opportunities in what he called the friendly Arctic. He strategized that a small expedition party living on the island for 2 years would solidify a claim, and after asking Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States, the Canadian government reluctantly agreed to fund the initial voyage. Even with Stephenson's eagerness, it quickly became clear to Ada that he would not join the expedition to Wrangel Island. Instead, he had recruited Alan Crawford, Milton Gow, Fred Maurer, and Lorne Knight to carry out the expedition on his behalf. Stephenson discouraged them from bringing more than 6 months' worth of supplies. He assured them that game would be plentiful on the island, and the men, with little experience of their own, were inclined to believe him. 23-year-old Ada was terrified. She had a deep fear of polar bears and was extremely uneasy at the idea of being stranded for several months alone with unknown men. To make things worse, the other Alaska Native families who agreed to join the expedition ultimately backed out, making her the only Inupiak and only woman present. But Ada needed the money. If she joined the expedition, she would return to Nome with enough to reclaim her son from the orphanage. On September 9, 1921, the expedition group left for Wrangel Island. Ada and the 4 men were also joined by their expedition kitten named Victoria, or Vic for short. The cat had been born on the ship the men had taken to Nome and was given to them by the ship's captain. They took her with them on the expedition, proclaiming that she was their good luck charm. When the group landed at Wrangel Island, the men celebrated their arrival, but as the ship that had brought them to the island left, Ada was silent. She walked alone to the gravel beach, watched the ship fade into the distance, and wept. Struggling in the new environment and feeling threatened by the others, Ada became extremely anxious and withdrawn, which led to her neglecting the duties of cooking, cleaning, and sewing. This, in turn, caused them to grow more and more aggressive towards her. The seamstress refused to patch a pair of boots today, so I tied her to the flagpole until she promised to repair them. Kindness failing to accelerate, I am trying something more forceful. From the Diary of Lorne Knight, dated November 23, 1921. But Ada Blackjack persevered. She decided resolutely that she needed to survive for her son, and the fog eventually lifted. She threw herself into her work, and as winter descended, the 5 people and 1 cat united on Wrangel Island.